a hot second. Okay, wait. Say that again.
Can you hear me?
Yep, there we
Yes.
go.
Perfect. I'm joining you from the future, really.
Yes.
For day ahead here down in Australia, which is exciting.
I love it. It's so funny. I was like, oh, and Gabbie in Australia, then just like the like so far. It's so look at this how it connects us. And sure, in the future, we know you're in Wednesday. Wednesday's going to be great. Excited.
It is.
Oh, there's Egypt. Wow. Oh my gosh, this is so awesome. And we just want to say thank you again to everybody. I'm going to jump right in here because I know we have a lot to cover, and I can't wait for Gabbie to talk about this amazing topic. We love it. We've already been talking when we were waiting for this to start. We were like, we love social media, like maybe a little too much sometimes, but it can be very helpful for your business. So excited to talk about it today. I'm going to introduce Gabbie formally here in a minute, but I do want to say a couple things before we get started. That hopefully you've been able to join us earlier today for our past two sessions. But if not, no worries, because you can go to our sales workshop page, so the same one that you would have registered with. And in there, you're going to find all the recordings from today. Same with this one. So if you have to hop off or you have a colleague who missed this, you'll be able to watch the recordings in there right away. So all of that will be in there. And then, of course, this will also wrap up our first day, which is so crazy. This goes so fast when we do these. And so then we'll start tomorrow again at 10 a.m. sharp Central Time. So it's going to be really awesome. So make sure you go in there and register to save your seats for those really cool webinars. It's going to be a really, really good time. But as I mentioned, these are being recorded because, again, we also know it's really everybody's very busy right now. And to take, multiple hours out of your day for 3 days straight is sometimes not the easiest. So we will record all these for you and make sure that you can watch them. And a lot of these too, I know users will come back and watch them again. And, they'll always live out there for you to come back and view. So that's the great thing about this. But with that being said, I want to pass it on because, again, we love with Sales Workshop. This is a great opportunity that we can really just focus on sales, building your business. But one of the most popular topics on this is marketing, social media. So we had to bring in one of the experts of Gabbie. And if you recognize or you recognize that name, she was on a podcast, which I think it was earlier this year now. And it was a really, maybe like February. And it was like shortly after that, I'm like, Gabbie, do you want to do like another webinar with us? Because that was awesome. So I'm super excited to have you here today. And it's just gonna be great. But to also introduce, I know you'll share more about who you are, but Gabbie's a social media consultancy in the travel industry. You fell into it pretty quickly, and it makes sense because you're really awesome at it. So I'll let you take it away and share your expertise with us.
Perfect. In a moment here, I will share my screen. But as I'm doing that, I just wanted to first say thank you all for, no matter where you are joining from, for joining. It's a really kind of unique topic to talk about social media in conjunction with branding. Often we talk about it kind of as two separate things. So we talk about social media and then we talk about our brand as small business owners. And so today I'm going to try to combine those for you and talk about how you can use each of them to leverage your own business's growth. And so without talking about me too much, I feel like I have to introduce myself and who I am so you know who's talking at you for the next couple of moments here. My name's Gabbie Borgus. I'm actually based out on the East Coast. I'm from Rhode Island. I saw some Massachusetts people in the chat in Connecticut, so shout out to New Englanders. But I am currently in Australia, working with some colleagues out here. So it's been really exciting, and I'm excited to join you from the future. But I jumped into the travel industry in 2018, actually because of this picture on the top. My grandparents are pictured above on a guided travel guided tour experience. And it's their love of travel and their exploration of the world that got passed down to me. And it's because of them that I really found myself in this fantastic industry. I can't ever talk about myself without talking about my dog. So if you have an animal, drop it in the chat because I love hearing people's pets and your pets' names and all of that good stuff. So feel free to light up the chat with all of your pets and animals and such. But whether they have 4 legs or 2, it's up to you. But my child has 4 legs, and his name is Finn. And then, like Steph said, I jumped into the social media space around the pandemic, like many people. I'm sure, and really wanted to help travel advisors leverage the opportunity that we had in the middle of a pause. I recently heard the pandemic referred to as a pause, and I think I like that wording better than any other wording I've heard in a long time because things didn't end completely; they just paused. And in that pause, I turned to social media and had a real mission of going after connection and connecting with other people, specifically the industry I knew, and that was the travel industry, and helping travel advisors grow their business through social media. So we can't talk about branding without defining it. So, and if at any point, Steph and Bonnie, my slides disappear, tell me.
We'll let you
We've
know.
All right, so we can't talk about branding without defining it. And so, to Oxford Dictionary defines brand as a type of product manufactured by a particular company under a certain name. So I'm sure no matter where you are in the world, you recognize some of these. If you recognize any of these, drop them in the chat. An obvious one here is McDonald's. You've got Taco Bell. You'll notice that I can name all of the fast food ones. It's a passion of mine. But you can also see things like John Deere, Microsoft, Audi, and more. Some of these are a little harder, so I am interested to see which ones you guys can name. There is a travel one hidden on here. If you catch it, I'm impressed. But these would be considered brands' logos. And a brand is really more than just a logo. It's the emotion that these companies elicit to you. A great example of a company that elicits emotion well is Apple, all the way in the bottom corner there. And Apple does a fantastic job selling their product because they really, and I'm sure maybe you've seen the TED Talk called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. But we're going to kind of utilize that concept of, as we talk about branding and social media today, I want you to focus on why you got into the business in the first place, why you are, in the travel space, and really encourage you to think of your why. Because what I'm not going to do today is I'm not going to tell you how to create a personal brand, or I'm not going to tell you how to create a company brand. We're going to talk about how to use the brand you already have and to leverage that on social media. And so from there, we've got personal brand. And so when we are small business owners, these two can overlap, and they often overlap quite a bit. So you've got your company's brand and your personal brand, but I imagine that many of you are the sole owner, or maybe you are the only person within your agency, or you're the only advisor there, or you may be connected to a larger brand, in some cases a consortium, a host agency, whatever it may be. So you have that brand that you're connected to, as well as your personal brand. And so when you think of your personal brand, it's really the image that someone thinks of when they think of you. It's how you are appeared to be perceived. I always think that, and I use the example of for myself, I want to be known, and part of my brand as my personal brand is to be approachable. I always want to be known as being approachable. So things that I do to reflect that would be I'll never wear AirPods walking down the road, or I'll never wear my headphones walking down the street. And that's because I want to be seen as somebody who, if somebody's lost walking through the city, they know they can come up to me. Or the grocery person, the cashier checking out at the grocery store, I want them to know that they can have a conversation with me. And so that's part of my personal brand. That doesn't have anything to do with my agency, my social media agency. It doesn't have to do anything with my work, but it's my personal brand. And so as we talk through connecting these two things to social media, if you haven't thought about your brand in a long time, both your business's brand and your personal brand, I would encourage you to do so. Because as you dive into social media for brand exposure, it's really important to have a solid understanding of your brand and what it is that it means to you. So really, we know that social media is what most people are going to now to gather information, whether it be to look up a cafe nearby, whether it be to get ideas or inspiration, or even make purchases now. It's really also most social media platforms, Instagram specifically, is rapidly growing in the amount of sales it's doing via purchased goods, which is really interesting. It's not something we would have maybe thought would happen 10 years ago. And so we want to talk about today strategic social media practices that can elevate your brand and help really you identify your unique selling position as a travel agent. And so, first, you need to leverage your target audience. So, when you think of your brand, I want to challenge you to think about the demographics and the psychographics of your people. So, when you think of who your ideal target audience is, what do they do? What are they like? Where do they spend their free time? What do they do for a living? Then you can analyze their psychographics, things like where do they shop, right? Are they somebody who is going to get their groceries at Target, or are they getting their groceries at like a Whole Foods? Are they somebody who wants to travel only by train or something that's a little bit more carbon friendly, or are they willing to travel by plane and jet, etc.? So, what are those psychographics and those demographics that make up your target audience? Because you need that to understand them better. And you may be thinking, but Gabbie, how does this apply to social media? It's a great question because this is really part of your brand. And so, what we do with this on social media is you start to target your ads. And this is really my first kind of piece of advice is use your target audience to create targeted ads. When you're posting an ad about your company on social media, whether it be a Facebook ad, an Instagram ad, it's going to ask you to fill out a large series of questions. Who do you want to target? What are their age? Where do they live? And I think sometimes in attempts to just get an ad out there or to just do something, people fly right through that. And I would encourage you to slow down in the ad process because ads are really an important part of social media now more than ever. And to get seen, sometimes it means, and I would almost argue often it means we've got to start putting ourselves out there with ads. And so using the proper demographics and psychographics and really understanding the audience you're after, you can create more targeted ads on social media. An ad is going to allow you to get more views. It's going to bring more traffic and audience to your social pages, then hopefully to your web link. When you create an ad on social media, you have the option to decide where you want to direct the people who respond. So I would encourage you to think of for example, if you are a advisor focused on cruising and all you do is you sell cruises, then what you may want to do is link them back to a page that talks about multiple different types of cruises. Maybe you are somebody who really is just trying to grow awareness for your agency at large. So you might just link them back to your social media page. If you're posting an ad, maybe you're promoting a group and you want people to sign up for more information on the group, then you're going to bring them right to a sign up link. So as you think through who you're targeting with these social media ads, you want to put yourself in their shoes. If you were scrolling on social media and you had an ad pop up, what would you be willing to do? Would you be willing to fill out a form in that moment? Or maybe you'd just be willing to go to their page and check them out. So as you start to think through the more about what your people are and what your people will do, the more you can target those ads to the proper audience. So targeted ads, and targeted ads start with a really strong targeted audience. And then this one's a little controversial. I say that, but it's not exactly. But you don't need to be on all of the social media platforms. In case nobody told this to you, I'm telling it to you right now. Let go of the stress that you need to show up on every single social media platform. You can't see it, but I feel passionately about this. I'm clapping my hands. You don't. I think there's this pressure as small business owners that we need to show up on all social platforms all of the time. I'm imagining you're looking at this picture and thinking, Gabbie, I don't even know what some of these social media icons connect to. And that's because there's just so many social media platforms in the world nowadays that you could not be on all of them. You would burn out so quickly. So what I would encourage you to do is as you identify that target audience we just spoke about, think about what platforms they are going to be on.
Really quick, I don't think we see that screen. I think it. No worries.
That-
No, I was just thinking, thank you everyone for the chat. I was like, wait, is it just me? And I was just waiting and there we go. Okay, you're good.
Perfect. All right. So you might be looking at these now and thinking, I don't recognize some of these, right? And so what I want you to do is as you think through your targeted audience, I want you to think through where they would be. And if you're unsure, start to Google what kind of people use LinkedIn, what kind of people use Pinterest, what kind of people use Facebook, and start to match that to your target audience. I always suggest my rule of thumb, and if you've listened to the podcast previously, you would know this, but I suggest maybe starting with two to three platforms, no more to start, because it can become really easy to burn out. And as you think about your personal brand and your company's brand and growing your brand awareness on social media, you want to be able to show up. So the question you really need to ask yourself is, how many social media pages can I commit to showing up on? If that's one, then show up on one. Show up, show out, engage on that one page really, really well. If it's two, awesome. I would say as you really get into this, if you're kind of newer in the social media space, don't do more than three. I'd say two is really the sweet spot. And pick two that's where your audience is going to be. The popular pair is Facebook and Instagram. That would be the popular pair. I would push some of you to reevaluate Instagram as the place for your clientele. If you have a clientele that's retired CEOs and maybe they're retired business people or business professionals, maybe it's LinkedIn. Maybe what you really need to be on is Facebook and LinkedIn. And you're wondering, why am I not getting the traffic I'm getting from social media? And I want you to ask yourself, are you on the right platforms? And so as you think through that, it really connects to your target audience. So we're saying create those targeted ads, and then we need to make sure we're on the correct platforms to leverage our brand, right? If your brand is this well put together, tailored, geared towards business professionals, and you're over on the Snapchat platform, which is really for a younger generation, it's quick, it's short, I can almost guarantee you your clientele is not on it. And so it's not worth the time and effort you're putting into showing up on a platform that your target audience is not on. YouTube is one I think that gets forgotten, but those long form blogs are becoming ever more popular. So if your target audience is, I would really say, in that middle age demographic, YouTube is really finding an uptick in that, of people moving out of watching TV and watching videos on YouTube instead. So maybe what it is you walking around a ship, pointing out some cool features, or you talking about what it's like to work with you in a longer form video on a page like YouTube. And then this sounds easy, right? Create engaging content. We can all do that. Easy peasy. I can move on. No, I know this is the hardest part. And it seems easy. And I think this is where people get the most frustrated, especially when it comes to representing your brand. The biggest advice I think I can give to you, and hopefully the most tangible piece of advice, is to write down 5 words that represent your brand. If you could just sum up your brand in 5 words, you cannot use any more and don't use any less, what would those 5 words be? And think through that. And then from there, start to draft out what you could connect to each word. So for example, if I were to think of my brand, one of the words I would use to describe my social media agency's brand would be really resourceful. Part of what I'm doing is making sure that people have the resources they need. So I might use the word resources or resourceful. From there, I'm going to think through and I'm going to say to myself, all right, Gabbie, how am I going to show resourcefulness on Instagram? Maybe it's sharing resources that I utilize. Maybe it's walking people through how to utilize resources. Maybe it's showcasing new resources. If one of the words you're going to use to describe your brand is adventure, maybe you sell a lot of adventure travel, then your pictures should not be people sitting on a beach. wouldn't really define adventure as lounging. Do I love to lounge? Of course. But when I think of a fun and sun destination and lounging, I think of the word relaxation. So if that's a word that is going to come to mind when you're thinking of your brand, then somebody on the beach is perfect. But if you're adventure, maybe you're more like this picture in the corner here of this couple hiking up a mountain. Maybe you're showing people snorkeling or scuba diving. Maybe I was working with an advisor the other day who said one of the words she wants to brand her company with is ease. She wants people to know that it's easy to work with her. And she said, so how would I ever showcase ease in content? And that's a good question. And it comes really, and I think ease comes with sharing that maybe through quotes. Maybe she's going to share some testimonies, and she's going to post some actual words of her client reviews. Ease could look like showing people a quick 30-second maybe video that walks somebody through an easier way to check out on a website, or shows them how easy it is to get in contact with you, right? No long hold times. I'm sure you are all answering your phones much quicker than the hold times that you all deal with waiting on. And so maybe you call that out. You don't have to wait on hold for 2 hours. That's what I'm here for. And really showing them by being straight up. I think sometimes we think content can only be photos and videos, but it can be words, it can be flyers, it can be documents, it can be emails. And so as you think through the multiple pieces of content, again, I'd encourage you, think of those 5 words that connect back to your brand, and then start to identify pieces of content you can share that connect back to those 5 words that describe your brand as a whole. This is a really interesting poll, and I think it really related to our brand and social media conversation. But having better social media engagement means your customers have a stronger relationship with your brand. This came out from a pretty recent report, and I think it's important to remember that as a brand on social media, they can only see one side of you. They don't get to know what's happening behind the scenes. They don't get to know what you're doing offline. And so the more you can build those relationships in the comments, comment on your clients' pictures. When they post that it's their kid's 3rd birthday, comment happy birthday. That's all about showing up and really engaging with your current clients and customers, but also the ones you want to have. I'm going to show you an example of 2 companies that do this really well. And maybe you've heard of Ryanair and Duolingo. And so what these 2 companies have done that have really revolutionized social media engagement is they've both started to poke fun at their own brand. And if you know anything about Ryanair, it's really like a budget airline, and there's nothing wrong with it, but they've got quite the reputation as being a budget airline. And so what they've done is they've leaned into it, and they've created an extremely engaging social media platform. And as you can notice here, they're on TikTok, and that's because most people that are traveling on Ryanair are going to be on TikTok. It's going to be that younger clientele. They're looking for the affordable airfare options. And Duolingo is a fantastic app that allows you to learn different languages. And so they have this little mascot that they've really gotten creative with and utilizing and engaging. But something that they both do is they comment on others' pages. So you'll see them often commenting on their ideal clients' pages, which is really cool and a lot of fun. And so I think as you start to figure out what does engagement look like for me and for my brand, check out how some other really popular brands engage to give you an idea, whether it just be comments or having fun, bringing joy. Social media should not be a stressful, though commonly is, should not be a stressful kind of platform. We want it to be fun, and not only do these 2 do a really great job at bringing the fun, they do a great job at really making you feel like you're part of their brand. And so the next thing I want to talk about here is influencer marketing. And you're probably thinking, Gab, I can't afford an influencer, or my brand's not big enough to have an influencer. And that's actually not true. An influencer is commonly thought of as somebody with this, millions of people and all of this following, and probably cost an arm and a leg to have somebody post their photo. But really, we all have influence. If you have 5 followers, you have influence over those 5 followers. And so, what I would encourage small business owners to do is start to utilize your target audience as influencers. They're not really what we think of when we think of the traditional influencer. But what you can do is start to have your clients post photos of the trip and tag you. Ask your clients to share, their feedback on their stories. Ask them if they're willing to put together a quick little reel on their trip that you can use. Most people are going to say, yes, I work with an advisor who small business, nothing large at all, but has an influencer option on one of her booking packages. And all it is when people say, yeah, I want to be an influencer for your agency, there's no monetary anything. They just get a little like badge that says they're an influencer with X travel agency. And then they post all of their travel photos and all of their photos that that advisor has helped them get to, and all of the destinations. And the person posting, maybe only has a couple hundred people, but it's a couple hundred people just like her. And that's the target audience. So the more you can encourage your clients, who are obviously already your target audience, to post and share you and your information, the more you can get your name out there and really start to spread awareness. And so as we think about our brand, we can use social media to spread that brand awareness outside of our own pages. And so this is when I would really encourage you to leverage and lean into this. I don't want to call it a fad because I don't think it's going anywhere, but this, idea of influencer marketing. I think sometimes as small business owners, we say, oh, we couldn't do that, or no one would want to, promote my brand. But it's actually totally opposite of the truth. And people love sharing things they've done and have been to. And people love feeling like they're an influencer. And whether they want to admit it or not, it feels cool to be an influencer. And so if you're asking someone, hey, are you going to be an influencer? I'd love for you to post, your most recent travel photos from your trip. You could just tag me. I'd appreciate it. 99.9% of the time, they're going to say, oh my God, I'd love to. I'd love to be an influencer for you. So maybe you've thought yourself out of this box, but I'd encourage you to re-put yourself in the ability to do so. Okay, as we wrap up, I want to talk about a couple myths around brand awareness, specifically around the connection to social media. So this myth number one is you're never allowed to change your brand. That is a myth. And I actually think sometimes people are like, but my social media is so connected to, all of the colors, or all of the photos are Disney, and now I'd like to do X, Y, and Z, or vice versa. You can change your brand. I would encourage you to think long and hard about it, but you absolutely can change your brand. So I'd like to encourage you to think, is the brand you're utilizing and showcasing, whether it be the colors or the type of travel you're promoting, does it match what you really want to do long term? And if yes, then don't change, it's working. But if it doesn't, don't think that you can never change. Another myth is you should not shift your brand to match it. This often comes up, especially in the travel industry, of like, if your niche is selling cruises, you should never sell a guided tour. I actually disagree. And I think specifically on social media, if you have somebody reaching out to you and they're like, hey, I see you do X, Y, and Z. And, you also you say you mainly promote cruises, and then you really want to promote a land tour, or you really want to promote a fun and sun destination. You could and absolutely can have the ability to do that. Brand is not a box you're stuck in forever. I think a perfect example of this, to put it into context, is McDonald's. We're all familiar with McDonald's, no matter where we are in the world. But if you're familiar, if you've ever been into a McDonald's that's not your own McDonald's, I would encourage you to go into one, because they have different food in every McDonald's depending on where you are in the world. So if you go to McDonald's in France, they have macaroons. My McDonald's in New England does not carry macaroons because that just wouldn't work. In McDonald's here in Australia, they call it Macca's. They've totally shifted the company name to match where they are. And so their brand hasn't changed, who they are hasn't changed, but they've made small, subtle shifts to meet their clientele where they're at, which you can do too. And the last myth is that your brand does not, that should say does not, your brand does not affect sales, because it does. Your brand does affect your sales. And having a strong brand awareness and having a strong brand identity does affect your sales in a positive way. And so really keeping those three things in mind as you start to head back into your social media world. And so, like I said, we didn't talk a ton about a brand, but hopefully you have some tangible ideas on how to take the brand you already have and either start charting your social media course for the first time, or diving into it with a new lens.
That's awesome. Love it. Oh, it's so inspiring. I love these ideas. They're so cool. So, okay, we had some questions in this. I want to jump into a couple here. Is one though, can you explain? Okay, so for the influencer side of
Yeah.
like, can you explain again how the person who did that? So basically, they
Yeah.
just had a badge, right? Like that's all it was that
Yeah.
they were giving them. That's awesome.
Question. It's super easy. And her and I were working on, I should have asked her if I could use her name, because I imagine she wouldn't mind. But her and I were working on getting her brand out there. And what she had currently was some really strong clientele who were pretty well known in their companies, in the community, but her brand just wasn't getting that reach. And so what she did is she went on Canva. Lord knows we love that site, and just made a tiny little plaque. It was a word certificate with, I think, the sizing we picked. And then she also had a little plaque to match it on Instagram, a little social media sized tile for it. And what she did is, on her website, she had added a little tab that said join my influencer crew or group. I can't remember how we worded it. And wrote a little blurb, if you're willing to promote your trip as an influencer, then you get X, Y, and Z. And it was some really small, if I'm remembering correctly, because we did it a few years ago now, it was you got a t-shirt, I think, and then you got a small percentage off your next trip. And what it did is it provided a lock-in to get people to repeat customers. But when the program started, she just flat out asked people, will you be an influencer for my company? And then all of a sudden, over time, people were asking her, hey, you just booked our trip. I'm looking to join your influencer crew. I'm willing to promote, your trip for you, my trip for you. And it just took off. And it was a really easy way to start to get her brand and her word out.
That's so cool. I love that. Oh, well, and I've heard that too with you can give away like some swag like that, or if you do have a fee, like you waive it or something, or give them a discount. And that's so cool. That's a really cool idea. I have one more question, then I'll let Bonnie do some questions here. Is one, someone had asked, like, what would the age demographic be for like TikTok? Because I know like TikTok and video, like it's a big thing. So is there
Yeah,
a good demographic that you would know are the people in there?
it's a good question. So for your specifically for TikTok, you're gonna have a much younger demographic, but I would say it's like any social media, it's not exclusive, right? They're all gonna hit everybody, but the majority is gonna be probably your younger millennials and your Gen Zers is really who you're gonna find on TikTok. So if you're there are some tour operators and companies that target a younger demographic. If that's what you're working with, then I would absolutely highly recommend TikTok, because most, if not all, Gen Zers are going to be on that platform. And then you have everybody else kind of slewed in there, but it's mostly Gen Z.
Yeah. I say you have mostly like us three. Like we were just talking about how we can scroll through TikTok so
Yeah.
intensely, but it's fun watching like to see. But I think it's so important, like you said at the beginning, like you don't want to get caught up in thinking you have to do everything and things that you're not even sure about. Like just sticking. I think that's so important. Even our first session earlier today with Cindy, she said the same thing right away. Like, don't do everything, which is so important.
No, and I was reading a survey recently. It was done in 2023, and it said that on average, people are watching 17 hours of video per week online. 17 hours. I think the math would be like almost 140 minutes a day. 140 minutes a day of video on their phones, on social media. So if you're not on there, you're missing out on somebody's 140 minutes a day that you could be getting your brand across to them.
Wow. What a number. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's a little
Oh,
terrifying.
I
Yeah.
know.
Oh my gosh. When you put it into 140 minutes a
Yeah.
day, then it suddenly became like, oh wait, I probably
Yeah, you're
reached
like,
that point.
Yeah,
yeah.
70 hours is one thing, but we probably all hit 140 minutes a day easily.
Great. Well, I've got some great questions here that I would love to hear your thoughts on, your expertise. But one of them was from Ryan. I hope I am pronouncing your name right. But she goes, is there certain types of engagement on social media platforms that would increase your exposure better than others, such as, doing polls or doing stories or commenting, or really is it all the same? How can we beat the
So,
algorithm?
good question. The algorithm is everyone's favorite topic because it's the hardest thing to conquer. I'm going to open and answer the question by saying the algorithm changes often, which is what makes it tricky. And so if you're not constantly attuned to its changes, it can be pretty tricky to follow. And so what I would say, though, with that in mind, commenting is really holding high right now because most all social media platforms are looking for people to engage and spend more time. And a comment is the reaction of spending more time on the platform. So, for example, if we think of Instagram, one of their priorities, just like any other company, they have priorities, but is to get people to spend more time on their app. That's why we spend 140 minutes a day because we get hooked in. And to get your piece of content above somebody else's, the app or the algorithm wants to see that people are spending time on your post. That's why maybe you may have noticed over the past couple of years, captions are getting longer, right? We used to have those remember back in the day we had one sentence caption and that was the way to go. And now it's longer, lengthy paragraph captions. And that's because as you read through that paragraph of the caption, you're staying on that single post longer. And then therefore that's going to be moved up to the top. And not only that, but a paragraph of words typically gets you to react more in the comment section than a one-liner. And so if there's any type of engagement I would encourage you to do to start to get your posts higher or start to beat the algorithm, though I'm not sure anybody ever can, it's to comment, both encourage people to comment on your own, but show the algorithm that you are an engaged user by commenting on others. Because it's going to pay attention to both. How much time are you spending engaging with others and how much are others engaging with you? So there's a lot of things I could go there, but really the number one is get people to spend time on your posts through longer captions and engaging comment sections.
Ooh,
Those are good tips.
Yeah, I was going to say the algorithm is always something that's different between social media. So there's so much to cover and manage.
Yeah, we could do a whole topic on algorithms.
Yeah, that would be a fun session podcast, Stephanie, for the future.
Could be. I like it.
But cool. I would say this is a personal one of mine that came up. But do you have a favorite platform that you like to use to create your content for social media? I know you slipped in Canva, but
I did not.
Canva the one?
Yeah, not sponsored. Wish. Canva, absolutely. And I will say I do use Lightroom. I do use Adobe sometimes, but what I would suggest, unless you are If you have a background in graphic design, you're going to have one that you like better. But for most people, your passion is travel and business and probably not graphic design and social media content creation. And so Canva makes it the easiest. Not only that, I think if you I would encourage you to get their premium subscription. I feel like I'm talking for them here. I would, because it's very cheap and you get access to a lot of images as well that you could totally use without fear of copyright and content laws and regulations, which other platforms, other graphic design platforms can start to get a little weary with. Or Canva, you are totally safe to use the photos and images that are provided there. It also allows you to flex your content between different platforms. So like a hot tip is if you make a Facebook tile, you can hit the lovely resize button in the upper left-hand corner of Canva and resize it into an Instagram tile without having to make an entirely different one. So there's little hacks like that on Canva that make it my personal favorite, easy to use go-to content creation site.
We love Canva. I know, and that's what the photos. That's the other thing. Like, it is worth it, like, to get the subscription, because then you get access to all their photos and they're so good. And so that's another thing that's really cool. So love that. I got a question here though that was shared. This is a really good one because I think a lot of agents run into things like this where question is, I'm an independent contractor for a host agency who lets me use their branding, but I don't like it. I still use their name and website, but I use my own branding. That means my branding is kind of split. What can you suggest to help with this?
Yeah. Oh my God, what a good question, because I feel like a lot of people are dealing with that.
Mhm.
That's a great question. My gut and my first thought to that, it came to mind, is lean into your own brand over everything else. Yes, you may have to keep it in the corner, and that's totally fine. But we're all inundated in the travel world, and we know what host agencies are, and we know what consortiums are. But the moment you step out of our little bubble in this industry, nobody else does. And I don't know if you've ever tried to have a conversation about a consortium or a host agency with your friends, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" Sounds like
Yeah.
a pitch. And so when we think of our clients, that would be like foreign language to them. And so I would say really lean into your own brand, and I would really try to make it like a 90-10 split. 90% is you, what you are after, your colors, your fonts, your photos, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then really just holding on to maybe what you're required to. I know everyone is different, so maybe if you're required to hold on to any, then keep that smaller on the 10% side. I also think that helps in keeping you unique and standing up out of the crowd.
It's true.
Good question.
Perfect. No, personal brand. It's always so hard to figure out and like focus time on what you are doing. And so speaking of that, you kind of talked a lot about, specific demographics, targeting your ads and everything else. Do you have any tips then on how you would recommend targeting to that specific demographic? You look at your analytics, you realize, oh, a lot of women or younger adults follow me. Like, what would you recommend to that?
Yeah. So I think it's gonna start with you deciding what you're after. So when you are on your social media, and you're thinking of your targeted audience, are you after awareness? Do you want follows, comments, likes, etc.? You just want to grow your page? Or are you after social media being the primary spot to get your bookings? So to convert your leads into paying clients. Because you could take it in either direction. Some agency owners use social media simply as brand awareness to get their name out there, but their clients come through their website or word of mouth. But if you're looking to leverage social media as your main ROI, meaning you're converting those leads to your clients, I would really start to say, take a look at your target audience. And then if you're not familiar with the apps, just start Googling. What app do women in their 30s spend the most time on? What app do, adults in their 60s spend the most time on? There's so much research on social media, which is, I think, one of the most helpful things. But really take that demographic that you're after and just start to look and pair, right? Right off the bat, I could probably tell you that, like, if we're talking about like women in their mid to late 30s to early 50s, I would say Facebook. That would be where I would go. If you have a clientele above 60, above 60, I'd still say Facebook. If you have a mid-30 business professional or business owners, higher class type of clientele, then I push you towards LinkedIn. You are selling a lot of Kentucky and, like that active younger travel, then I'd push you more towards like TikTok. It just depends. But if you're unsure, then I would simply Google what app does X, Y, and Z, insert your target audience, spend the most time on, and give it a shot. Give it a few weeks. Is it working? Shift, make some adjustments, try again, shift, make some adjustments.
It's so true. There's so much out there too that like HubSpot does, and like they do it every year too. So there's always an up to date. Yeah, that's like people's full job to make those available to people. So that's awesome. And you mentioned one. I want to ask one question because this has been really popular in the chat. Is LinkedIn? That is so cool. Hearing like LinkedIn, the way that's just evolved over the past few years. But what Rebecca had asked though, what type of content do you recommend for LinkedIn? Like more in-depth articles rather than short posts that you'd put on Facebook, or what are you seeing works the best there?
Good question. So on LinkedIn, my biggest piece of advice is to position yourself as an expert in the industry. So I would be including current events, lots of current events to talk about, right? Include current travel events, include statistics about the industry, trending destinations, include things that really at the end of the day, it's position you as the expert. Because what LinkedIn does that's unique to the other platforms is I think it's what I really like about it for travel agency owners is that it's the starting point of a conversation. Because typically the best business that comes from LinkedIn is somebody's having a conversation and they say, oh, I was thinking about going on X, Y, and Z trip. And that person says to them, oh my God, I have this friend on LinkedIn that's so great in the industry that knows so much. Why don't I get you connected with them? Or you should check them out. Because that type of clientele, they're not looking necessarily for someone just for ease. They want ease and expertise. And so when you're on LinkedIn, I would focus more on the expertise and creating content that sparks discussion.
That's awesome. I like that. Yeah. That's really cool to see. Yeah. The LinkedIn and just the different content that fits in different channels, and super awesome.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for answering all of our questions. And like previous sessions too, for everyone, if you didn't get your question answered, we are going to post, I believe, Stephanie, correct me if I'm wrong, post this in the Facebook group. So if you want to ask your questions, keep the conversation rolling. That's a great place to keep it going. But just to, here's the picture of the Facebook group. But lots of good stuff going on in there, and we hope to see more. But yeah. And then I wanted to make sure, Gabbie, too, did you have a website or anything that people could find you at, or will we find you in the group?
I know, I realized I just didn't say that. Yeah, I'll absolutely jump in the group. I'd love to be a part of that. So I'll jump into the group. But you can find me on social media and Instagram is the best spot to find me because I do take my own advice. I don't spread myself too thin on many platforms. So Instagram is the best spot to find me. And it would be and then That Guided Travel Girl. So it's That Guided Travel Girl. And you can find me on there. And then recently, business has been really busy. I'm sure everyone's been super busy. So if you also want to follow my personal life, my personal Instagram is linked from that page as well. But That Guided Travel Girl, thanks, Steph, is now. So definitely come check it out. Come say hi. I'm an open book. So questions you guys have that I didn't get to answer in here, please do not hesitate to shoot me a direct message. Remember that I'm in a different time zone, but I will get back to you. Absolutely. So this has been great. Thank you guys so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to hopefully continued conversation, and I'll see you all in the Facebook group.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So
I love that you already found the social media, Stephanie.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, I follow her and it's great. I love it. I got right to it. And I love like the personal, I've been following the Australian travels. It's awesome. It's fun. You have fun social accounts. You know what you're doing. I like it. Even I'm like, oh, she posted what she post. Like,
I gotta catch up with where
Yeah.
Gabbie is in the world.
yeah, where is she
Who knows?
today?
Maybe it'll be somewhere else other than Australia, but
Yeah.
who knows? But thank you again, Gabbie, for joining us. If you wanted to watch the recording, all of our recordings are going to be on the sales workshop page like usual. But if you have any questions, of course, let us know, professional@travefy.com. Always want to make sure you guys get your answers. But, oh, went too fast. Join us for happy hour. Gabbie, I'm sure it's going to be a little bit early where you are.
It'll be early for a
join,
cocktail, but
great way to start off your very early morning in Australia, Thursday, or I believe it would be your Friday, but definitely join us. It's always a good time. Let's see, but next session coming up is tomorrow. This is the last session of the day, which is crazy. But Stephanie, do you want to go in on what's coming up? What
So tomorrow at 10 a.m. Central, I can't even think of what that would, the middle of the night for Gabbie's Wednesday or Thursday going in. But I'm really excited for this one because we're talking about the art of the repeat sale, because a lot of times we talk, like today we spend a lot of time talking about getting people and, harnessing them and working with them. But tomorrow morning, we're going to go to the other end of it and talk about, how do you actually keep engaging with them and make them a repeat client? So I'm super excited to have Penny Cooper and Christina Vieira. It's going to be really cool. So join us for that. And then we'll just kick off another day of it, which is going to be a really good time. So I'm excited and hope you can join us there.
I know Penny and Christina, guys, you can. It is going to be phenomenal. They are brilliant agency owners. They are brilliant businesswomen. So absolutely do not miss them tomorrow.
Oh, that's awesome. I know they're super cool. They created, Magic Made Simple. They're both agency owners. They created it together. I mean, it's gonna be good. I'm excited.
But cool. Well, thank you again. Can't say it enough. This was super fun, and I hope to see everyone tomorrow.
Woo! See ya.
Bye.